The Florentine goldsmith of the 15th century, Maso Finiguerra, specialized in the creation of silver pexes decorated with the agnello technique, a mixture of lead and silver, owes a great deal of his success in the field of studies to his drawings, which were collected by the earliest collectors of this type of artwork, starting with Giorgio Vasari, who stated that he had many sheets by the artist in his libro de disegni, as he usually defined his collection. In the second half of the 17th century, a number of Finiguerra sheets from the 14 books of drawings sold by his heirs in the previous century were still found in Florence, in the collection of Cardinal Leopoldo de Medici, while others followed different paths, sometimes obscure and sometimes reconstructed by modern critics as in a real detective story. The Finiguerra group, as it is conventionally defined, was assembled by Bernard Degenat and Annegret Schmidt around the corpus of the Uffizi. This letter, in fact, can claim the oldest attribution to Maso. However, only Lorenzo Melli produced a precise reconstruction of the ancient corpus of the artist in the Uffizi, based on a widespread study of the historical inventories dating back to the 17th century. However, a different interpretation of the documents can be proposed in light of a complete reading of Registro dei disegni per tenere Sua Altezza Reverendissima, which in chronological terms is the first inventory produced by Filippo Baldinucci, the Florentine historian, curator of Cardinal Leopoldo de Medici collection of drawings. First of all, we should be aware that the first 53 pages of the 1673 Registro contain the index of drawings. The entries in the initial index up to the letter G are preceded by the letters V, F, and VL, which stand for volume, sheet, or bound volume. This list served as a draft for the printed inventory produced in the same year, 1673, dell'Istra dei nomi dei pittori di mano dei quali si hanno disegni, even if the letters V, F, and VL are entirely absent. Melli interpreted the presence of the letter V next to the entry Finiguerra numero 1 of the 1673 register as indicating that it referred to a whole volume containing drawings by Finiguerra. In the Listra, therefore, the entry Finiguerra numero 1 is not preceded by the indication V. According to Melli, the author of the printed copy had not understood the meaning of the letters V, F, and VL, which in fact were not transcribed. As a result, the text Finiguerra numero 1, again according to the scholar, was incorrectly understood by critics as indicating a single work. It was no coincidence that in 1974 Licia Collovi Radianti, based on what is written in the printed Listra, had considered the original older corpus of Finiguerra in the collection of Leopoldo de Medici made up of just 4 drawings. One of them was what Melli had considered a volume. in addition to which were the three that appear under the second entry, Tommaso Finiguerra numero 3. In this regard, Colloque Radianti pointed out how such a small number of works was in contrast to what Baldinucci had claimed in Notizie dei Professori del Liceo, namely that Cardinal Leopoldo would have owned a large number of exemplars by Maso. Melli's suggestion to identify the first entry of the Listra and of the earlier 1673 register, Finiguerra numero 1, as indicating an entire volume, certainly have the distinction of solving this problem. The correctness of the scholar's hypothesis cannot be entirely ruled out, but we should be well aware that in other cases where the letter V appears in the 1673 register before the name of the artist, the number that follows it never refers to volumes, but rather to single drawings, as confirmed by the subsequent inventory, the Nota dei libri dei disegni, tanto grandi che mezzani, con la distinzione di quanti ne sono attaccati per libro, dated 1687. For example, Bonone da Ferrara, numero 1, preceded in the 1673 register by the letter V, does not correspond to a volume with various drawings by this artist in the 1687 note. In fact, for Bonone da Ferrara, in the 1687 inventory, there is just one drawing pasted onto page 15 of the Libro Universale numero 22, and other examples, similar example, could be made. It therefore seems logical to think, in contrast to what Melli claimed, that the text Finiguerra numero 1 preceded by V in the 1673 register indicates the presence of a drawing by Finiguerra inside the volume, without giving more information about the nature and the content of the letter. Moreover, it has never been reported until now that in a note on page 67 of the 1673 register, dated 6 September, 2 days before publication of the printed inventory, we read: si nota che in ordine alle cartelle stampate che abbiamo ordinato, si numeri per ciascuno maestro, oltre tutti i disegni sciolti, ancora quelli si hanno attaccati nei libri, e però si deve avere riguardo che il numero di questo alfabeto non vuole confrontare con lo stampato, se non si somma, come è detto, quelli sciolti e quelli dei libri. It therefore seems that the intense work of counting the sheets was underway, hindered in part by the fact that some of them were to be found within unspecified books, from which they presumably had to be detached for subsequent placement in the volumes that made up Cardinal Leopoldo's collection. Indeed, the initial index of the 1673 register had just over 7,000 drawings, while the printed edition of the inventory, known as the Listra, had over 8,000. The count continued even after publication of the Listra. In fact, further additions had to be recorded in handwritten notes on a copy of the printed inventory, now conserved at the Bibliothèque Nazionale Centrale of Florence. In the latter document, the total number of works listed, including the additions, rose to over 11,000 by the 1st of August 1675. In just over 2 years, therefore, the total number of inventoried sheets had grown by around 4,000 units. In actual fact, even the count made by August 1675 cannot be considered complete, given that the only inventory tool that was to all intents and purposes complete and definitive was the 1687 nota that concluded the work of Baldinucci to curate the collection of Cardinal Leopoldo. In light of these considerations, it is important to note that between pages 94 and 95 of the 1673 register, there is a second list of artists with the relative drawings made up of a total of 2 sheets with writing on both sides by a different hand, and unfortunately incomplete. The number of works referred to the individual artists does not correspond to that assigned to them in the other inventories mentioned thus far. Finiguerra's name appears a third time with 28 drawings. As was customary, 20 was added on the side. Then, as there was no more space on the right margin of the page, a further group of 4 sheets was indicated before the artist's name. This gradual increase may indicate acquisitions that allowed Finiguerra's drawings to enter the collection a few at a time. However, Baldinucci wrote in Notizie that Cardinal Leopoldo collected drawings by Maso, and not that he bought them. It can therefore be reasonably to suppose that these sheets, at least in part, were taken each time from one or more books in the possession of the Medici family, and that they were therefore already available to the Medici prince and Baldinucci. At this point, at this point, it should be noted that in the second list, the incomplete one, the list of artists is interrupted by a quick note on the second sheet, which reads: "Qui va messo I 2 che dicano di Andrea Tafi, e in quel luogo metterò I 4 che dicono Cimabue." It obviously refers to the 4 drawings attributed to Cimabue and the 2 by Tafi, which according to the 1687 nota were found at the start of Libro Universale numero 1. It is also important to note that the same exemplars were also duly registered in the initial index of the 1673 register. This information is very interesting as it suggests, first and foremost, that the list included between pages 94 and 95 is contemporary to the index contained in the initial part of the same document, and not subsequent, as Paola Barocchi had instead claimed. Therefore, we can also suppose that as early as 1673, the drawings by Maso owned by Cardinal Leopoldo had increased to 28, 4 plus 20 plus 4, even if this data only appears in this incomplete list. This list seems to represent an intermediate phase of the work, and therefore the count of the works is partial, and we do not know if it precedes the selection phase. The importance of the selection work, in fact, emerges with evidence from a further note on page 97, dated 12 June 1673. This document attests that as of this date there were 4,292 rejects, made up of copies and other exemplars considered to be of little interest. Some of them certainly came from acquisitions, others instead were contained in books judged as ordinary, whose provenance is not specified. It is possible to believe that at least some of these books came from the Medici collections. Further confirmation of this is provided by the note relating to the 4 sheets by Cimabue in the 1673 register mentioned earlier. This letter, in fact, now attributed to an anonymous Senese artist of the late 13th century, probably entered the Medici collections together with the volume of Vasari's Libro de Disegni, donated by his brother Pietro to Francesco I in 1574. This provenance has been supported several times within the context of studies dealing with Vasari's collection of drawings. In conclusion, a review of Melli's theory, according to which in 1673 Cardinal Leopoldo was in possession of a volume of drawings by Maso Finiguerra, is proposed. It actually seems more likely that at this time the Medici prince obtained sheets by the artist through successive additions. The gradual growth of the Maso corpus could be the result of acquisitions or of extractions from books already in the possession of the Medici family. This second hypothesis was partly confirmed in the integral reading of the 1673 register. As we have seen, in fact, the books that Baldinucci took apart to form Cardinal Leopoldo's collection probably included the volume of Vasari's Libro, which entered the Medici collections at the time of Francesco I. It has already been hypothesized several times in the past that Finiguerra's drawings belonging to Leopoldo de Medici, at least in part, came from the Libro. In light of current knowledge, this hypothesis seems to be founded on more clear-cut data. In the first place, it can now be claimed with greater certainty that the drawings in the Libro joined the Medici prince's collection even before 1673, and not after the collection itself was transferred from Palazzo Pitti to the Uffizi around 1700, as some had claimed in the past. Moreover, Albert Even claimed that the exemplars by Maso listed in the 1687 nota were originally part of a single volume on the basis of an in-depth examination of their material characteristics. If this is true, the hypothesis that these sheets had a common origin seems all the more likely. Moreover, the final number of 28 drawings by Finiguerra, recorded in the list contained in the 1673 register on pages 94 and 95, although clearly fewer than the 68 pieces indicated in the 1687 nota, does not in fact rule out that Cardinal Leopoldo already owned all these drawings. In the first place, because the count of sheets may still have been incomplete in 1673. In fact, as mentioned, the only inventory that can actually be considered the final in terms of the total number of drawings is the 1687 nota, while the previous versions represent different phases of a work still in progress. Moreover, it is also possible that the total number of exemplars by Maso was obtained by cutting out the 28 sheets present in 1673. Indeed, at the time, collectors usually used this method to obtain a greater number of drawings. The reasoning could go further, but it goes beyond the length limitations placed on this article. According with the topic of this campaign, here is possible to conclude that the reputation of the Florentine goldsmith, Maso Finiguerra, spanned the centuries together with his drawings, passing from Vasari to Baldinucci, from Florence to the rest of the world.